And a good Wednesday evening to you, live from inside the Ramsey Center here in Cullowhee, North Carolina. Welcome you into our Facebook Live event tonight, presented by Stanberry Insurance. From the Catamount Sports Network, I'm Daniel Hooker, joined by longtime play-by-play voice of Western Carolina athletics, talking about Gary Ayers. And Gary, we have a very special night planned for this evening, so a couple of great guests to talk with. But I tell you what, man, it's been too long since you and I have been able to sit and talk anything related to athletics. So first and foremost, here, physically distanced, as we all know. Just great to see you first and foremost.
Oh, same here, Daniel. It's been such a long summer, and there were so many questions that we still don't know the answer to. But it is great to kind of get some Catamount athletics back on the air, whether it be Facebook, whether it be radio, TV, whatever the media is. We're just glad to be back in and getting some talk about Western Carolina University on the air.
And of course, where we sit here 1 month from this date, talking about November 14th, Western Carolina football will be on the road in Lynchburg, Virginia, as we take on the Liberty Flames. Looking forward to that first broadcast on CSN. It'll be the first Catamount Sports Network broadcast since, again, we were on the air in March and left all the equipment in the baseball press box. Gary, I had to go back and get everything because we left on one day thinking, oh, we'll be back this weekend. Turn right around that we weren't back for 7 months, basically.
That's the longest vacation I think we've had without any kind of broadcasting at all.
So we talk about tonight's Facebook Live presented by Stanberry Insurance, an independent insurance agency, 3 locations to serve you: Waynesville, Silva, and Highlands. Again, all great folks at Stanberry Insurance. They're online at stanberry-ins.com. Scott and Kevin Stanberry, all the great stuff they do. Again, Stanberry Insurance, with more options to keep your bases covered through all life slam dunks, touchdowns, and home runs. So, again, a nice little tagline for our good friends at Stanberry Insurance, presenting tonight's Facebook Live event, also streaming on YouTube. Daniel Hooker along with Gary Ayers, and let's welcome now 2 of our esteemed guests in, as we do have the luxury and the privilege of having 2 very important individuals with a lot of this discussion going on. And we'll welcome in our 2 guests for tonight. First, we'll welcome in from the Southern Conference, the Commissioner of the Southern Conference, Jim Schaus. A little over a year into his tenure there for the Southern Conference, and also Western Carolina first-year athletics director, talking about Alex Gary, who not quite yet to half a year here with the pandemic and everything going on, and a tough job. We'll talk with both these individuals, but first we'd like to welcome in both the Commissioner and Alex Gary.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to working with you tonight.
Hello, everyone. Really good to be with you guys tonight. I want to say a special thanks to Stanberry Insurance. When I was a student athlete here, I know back in 2003 or 2002, Larry Stanberry traveled with us to Oklahoma. Phenomenal support of the institution allowed us to take that trip. So it's especially special for me tonight.
Actually had a chance to talk with Larry earlier today. In fact, he's actually still up in Canada right now until it gets cold. Then they migrate back down to Florida and then come part of the way back here into Cullowhee, especially when we get into baseball season. But we do appreciate Stanberry Insurance and the Stanberry family for all they do for Western Carolina and Catamount athletics. And Commissioner Schaus, we'll jump right in. And right off the top, again, we talked about you just over a year into your tenure here with the Southern Conference. Let's talk about just reflecting back on your first full year. We can leave COVID out for now. We've got plenty to talk about with the pandemic, but let's talk about your first year as the commissioner. Pretty successful year between the football, basketball, an unbelievable run that we had with Southern Conference teams, and then, of course, the pandemic hit. We'll get to all of that, but let's reflect on your first year as commissioner here in the Southern Conference.
Yeah, well, thanks, Daniel. It was a great year. I absolutely loved the job. It was a smooth transition after 20 years as a Division I athletic director to move into the commissioner's role. Being on campus, I think, helped me quite a bit. And so I really enjoy working with our 10 outstanding institutions in the role that you have to play and working really with 10 great groups to help grow. And, in terms of, the first part of the year's first 7-8 months was terrific. Had a great basketball season, ranked 13th nationally. Certainly had a lot of bright spots in football last season and a lot of our sports. Academically, the student athletes had another stellar performance. Overall, I just think it was great success. Another terrific year for our conference. And personally, it was just a wonderful transition for my wife and I to move down here to South Carolina, and really have enjoyed the hospitality and the job. So it was been a great year, and Obviously, the last several months have been a challenge, but we're working through that. And I know we'll get to the other side of that soon enough.
Oh, yeah, 33 All-Americans in the conference a season ago, 26 teams earning NCAA APR recognition. You talked about the great job in the classroom as well as on the playing field and courts. And, of course, basketball season and the wonderful tournament there in Asheville was really the last event that we all got to really take part in as a conference before, obviously, the pandemic hit. And, of course, we turned now and talked to one of the newcomers when it comes to Southern Conference, talking about Alex Gary, who is no stranger to Southern Conference competition. Alex, a former student athlete here at Western Carolina. And Alex, obviously, you were announced in and around that basketball tournament over in Asheville here in Cullowhee as the next director of athletics. You got to enjoy a pretty good run there by Western Carolina. Big win over Mercer, moving on early in that tournament. And then, of course, everything, you were back out west until you came back here in May. And again, welcome to the job. Your first time getting started with Western Carolina. You got to learn a new position, but also now navigate something that nobody has experience with, and that's a global pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, to be honest. It's been fantastic, though. To be able to be here as a student athlete, really understand the experience of being in Cullowhee as a student athlete, and then going to 4 different institutions around the country in order to prepare myself to come back here and lead our athletic department is just really fantastic. I'm blessed to work with an outstanding staff every day, including people like Daniel Hooker here and many others who have been here a good amount of time and are dedicated to helping make us better every day.
Kind of want to touch, Alex, also on that. Overall, as the director of athletics and having such a close tie, what is your vision? What is your direction that you see for Catamount athletics? What do you want the Alex Gary athletic department in Cullowhee to look like?
Jumping right in here.
Oh yeah,
No,
right off the bat.
That's an awesome question, a fair question, and something that I'm looking forward to addressing to all of Catamount Nation. I think, first to invest in our student athletes is people. They're young folks that come here and entrust 4 to 5 of the most critical years of their lives to what we're doing here in Cullowhee. I know what I was like as a freshman and how my experience here changed me for the better when I got to be, to my senior year. Many people listening may know that we did hire Brigham Waginger as our director of student athlete development and alumni engagement. And, just one example of the things Brig will do a great job of is building relationships between our student athlete alumni, our current student athletes, putting those individuals together so that our student athlete alumni can serve as mentors and sounding boards as they evaluate potential career paths. For example, let's say we have a soccer student athlete that really loves numbers and she's really good at math, and maybe she is encouraged by her parents to major in accounting. Maybe she has a real purpose and passion for the arts. How great would it be for us to be able to connect her with a former student athlete that maybe lives in the same community that she lives in, to be able to talk about a career in arts and what does that look like? So maybe she's not wasting 3 years of her life, going down a path that maybe she's good at, but she may not be passionate about. And so when you talk about the vision for intercollegiate athletics here at Western, it really is first and foremost about investing in our current student athletes. And, secondly, I would say to provide our student athletes and our coaches with resources that what I call support competitive excellence. That means investing in facilities that our student athletes are in every single day, that our coaches are able to best recruit to, and that our fans can enjoy as well. This means having resources to retain good coaches who may want to consider other opportunities that are more financially lucrative. We've got some great things here in Cullowhee. We've got some great coaches that have been here and some have taken other opportunities. We have some great coaches that are still here, and we want to make sure that they stay here. That investment in competitive excellence, Daniel, also means giving our teams additional resources for things like recruiting and investing in technology. So ultimately, my vision is for every team to have exactly what they need to consistently compete in the top 3 in the Southern Conference and put themselves in a position every single year to reach the postseason. And the postseason does not mean the Southern Conference tournament. It means NCAA participation. And so I'm very optimistic that we can get there and look forward to working with my team in order to reach those goals.
No doubt about it, Alex. Commissioner Schaus, let's go back and look back to early March and COVID-19. I think the entire nation was stunned when the NCAA basketball tournament basically just got stopped really before it got started almost. But go back and talk about the tough decisions made at our Southern Conference level with the conference members when all that really brought the sports world, I think, to a screeching halt in some ways.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Obviously, it was a very difficult time fortunately, we were able to get our conference basketball tournament in for men and women, but it was very difficult to have those champions and not have an opportunity to compete in the NCAA tournament. It was difficult to have spring sports that had to be curtailed and those spring championships canceled. We had seniors and individuals that really were looking forward to that last year, and it was heartbreaking to not be able to really complete those seasons for them. They've worked hard for it, our fans, our parents. So that was extremely difficult. Yet at the same time, us making the decision to cancel the rest of that season was the right thing to do in terms of health and safety. Many things were learned over a period of time about COVID-19, and at that time there was, better safe than sorry on that. And so, yeah, that was extremely difficult. And I think as we have gone through this summer and into the fall, there's been, more challenging decisions, but I think we've also taken our time to try to be wise, to get a lot of information, not be the first ones that would come out and make decisions about when the season would take place or how we would address that. We took our time with the football and fall decision. I'm glad we did, because I think we was able to get a good perspective on all the pieces there. So I think at the end of the day, it's health and safety of the student athletes and coaches and fans that have to be foremost. And so I think that we made difficult decisions, but the right ones for now, but it doesn't mean that it was easy at all.
I really applaud the Southern Conference. I think it was very deliberate in the fact of coming out and not just saying wholesale, let's cancel everything, let's learn more. Let's go ahead and for the well-being of everybody involved, let's be deliberate. Let's get the most informed. And I really applaud the conference. Thought it was a great job. Having been an intern at the Southern Conference back in 2001, and of course we all know back in 2001 you had the 9/11 that happened. A lot of difficult decisions made in and around that. Of course, this is a lot more long-going and lasting. And Alex, we know obviously that the Southern Conference works really closely with its member institutions and its athletic directors, its presidents and chancellors across the board. What was your role as an athletic director, and what was your group's role in helping to help make this difficult decision that was really tough for everybody involved?
Yeah. We all kept an eye on who was doing what around the country. I believe at one point, Jim, Commissioner Schaus was getting us together multiple times per week because dominoes were falling so quickly, and those meetings were extremely healthy. So ultimately, we got to a point where there was a medical advisory group that made a suggestion, and the suggestion was not necessarily to start playing sports in September, which I think honestly was the right thing for Western specifically. What really sent a message to me, quite honestly, is seeing that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 postponed their seasons. And regardless of your thoughts on the decision overall at the time, institutions foregoing $30 to $75 million in losses by not playing football does make you kind of sit back in your chair a little bit and really analyze the decision that's in front of you.
Commissioner, now let's move forward to the summer. The decision made to postpone fall sports until the spring semester. Looking at that now, how is that helping the conference as we move forward and look ahead?
Well, as we discussed, it was a difficult decision. We also really took our time to make the right one. And I think that right now there's an opportunity for those sports to have a better potential environment. So for football and soccer, cross country and volleyball, by moving those sports to the spring, and we ended up kind of backing up a little bit on the cross country on November 21st for their championship. But I think it's just a better opportunity for them to be able to get more games in. Again, the culture and the environment just wasn't conducive for us to be able to have those seasons. And again, those were the right choices. We wanted those student athletes, those seniors, to make sure that they actually had a season and got a chance to compete. So I think again, challenging decisions. We're still dotting the I's on a few of those right now. And I think we're actually extremely close to being able to announce our football schedule in detail, as well as soccer and volleyball. I've mentioned cross country. We made that decision this past week. So I know that sometimes it's hard to be patient for fans. Like, why haven't we gotten it out earlier? But there's just a lot of moving parts and decisions that had to be made. And I think we're pretty similar to most of the conferences I've observed, that we had to work through a number of things. And I think we're very shortly going to be able to announce all those schedules, take a look at its compression, how it impacts spring sports, and even some of the overlap with the winter sports. So that's part of the concern, is to make sure that our schools, say on a given Saturday, don't have 5 home games, 5 home events. So I think we've got that mapped out pretty well, and I think we're very, very close to getting that information out for our fans.
I think that's good news. Everybody's really looking forward to that. Of course, a part of that decision, Commissioner, you guys made the decision to allow schools to explore non-conference games here during the fall, and we'll ask you first the decision behind that, and of course then we'll turn to Alex, as Western Carolina does have now 3 on the schedule. But first, from the conference level, talk to us about the decision to allow the schools to explore those non-conference games here this fall.
Yeah, one of the more important things for our institutions is those guarantee games, the money game, and they help fund the budgets for the entire football season. So giving flexibility, knowing that we're going to move our conference schedule to the spring, is imperative. And so we gave those opportunities to do that. There are certain guidelines and limitations that you needed to stay within. And so we have an 8-game schedule that will take place in the spring, but we gave some flexibility for those schools that wanted to do that. And I think it worked out well. And I think we gave flexibility in other sports in terms of volleyball and soccer. If they wanted to get a few matches in, that they could do that, but still have the primary focus be on our conference season that was moved to the spring.
And of course, Alex, we mentioned obviously the 3 games that Western Carolina has, 2 against teams that were previously scheduled, and of course the opening on the schedule for North Carolina for the Catamounts to travel down within our UNC system to take on the Tar Heels. What would have did the decision to try to play those games? Obviously, it makes sense with the financial impact, but just looking at the decision that was made here locally to continue with those non-conference games.
Sure. Yeah. When we were provided the flexibility to consider playing some games in the fall, first of all, let me go back and say, again, playing in September, we weren't prepared to do that at the time here at Western. I mean, there was testing and all the things associated with what types of testing are adequate, being able to figure out turnaround times between when the test is taken and the results are provided. There were issues around cardiac evaluations to figure out. There were restrictions even on our campus and our state with how many individuals could be outside or inside, which made for challenges of their own. So we didn't think we needed to make a quick decision not to play at all during the fall. So we made the decision to simply work with our non-conference opponents and move all of our contests to the very end of the semester. And I'm glad we did, because I think had we not done that, we would have wished that we would have done that. We see football being played. Certainly there are some issues, but one of the reasons that we did move everything to the end of the season was to learn from some of these issues, was to see what advancements were made in testing and see if we could get it at a more affordable rate for our institution. And also to keep a very young team together as long as we could. We've got 53 freshmen with walk-ons and red shirts and everything else this year. And so having a young team together, having our coaches be able to work with those young people for a longer period of time to develop throughout the course of the fall, getting ready for that spring season, is something we were really focused on. North Carolina did approach us last month about playing a game once their other non-conference competition was canceled. And I'm not going to lie, at first it concerned me. Playing a game in December, it just seemed a little weird, a little close to the spring season. But after we consulted with our medical staff, what they suggested and what we found out was actually decreasing the window of time between when you end in the fall semester and when you begin in the spring semester is actually a good thing as it relates to injury prevention. All the work that student athletes have done to build their bodies up over the course of the fall actually starts to deteriorate after about 4 weeks. And so there's exactly 4 weeks between the December 11th football game against North Carolina and when our student athletes would start in January 11th. So that's the plan, and that's how we made our decision.
Again, very deliberate, and once again, a lot of thought going into it. I know a lot of folks on the Western Carolina campus having input on a lot of these ideas, and of course, Harris Regional Hospital has been an outstanding partner for Western Carolina University and some of the testing that's been going on, and just working with a lot of folks here on campus as you navigate the unknown and the uncertainty of everything surrounding the trying to get back to competition and following NCAA guidelines to get ready for competition.
Oh, no question about it. And Commissioner Schaus, I hate to bring this up because it's no fun whether it's your personal budget at home or if it's an entire conference like the SoCon. But and we've seen it all around the country at some of the larger schools actually. But the Southern Conference, of course, talking about cost containment measures for 2021. That's a very painful topic, and I know not a pleasant one to work with. But what are some of those that you've been able to implement as we look ahead?
Yeah, Gary, we made some cuts with our staff. We're a couple staff members short normally, and we only have like 11 full-time people in our group. So that's a pretty significant reduction. We made some budget cuts going into the year, just reducing, kind of trimming a number of different areas and cutting back on our travel. One of the changes that was worked through the athletic directors is changing our conference championships, basically for our team sports, other than basketball, to be having a Final Four that would go. So that changed the scope, some of the expenses that we're used to having. So that helped scale back in that regard. So we've worked hard at that, and I think, frankly, it's small compared to the challenges that the institutions and the athletic programs have had to experience, just because of issues relative to enrollment, budget cuts that have come downhill. So we're very sensitive to that for our institutions. So we've tried to do our part, but I know that there's still a lot of challenges ahead. Whether it comes, for the institutions, for us, there's a number of things relative to revenue that's critical. The basketball tournament and our sponsorships, things like that, those are hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue that comprise our budget. And so all those things are in jeopardy, just like the schools have lost revenue for ticket sales and their sponsorships, concessions. And so everyone is impacted by this. Everyone has tried to make budget reductions, but there's still a lot of uncertainty about what's ahead. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and hopefully we can get on the other side of this and really mitigate a lot of the damages and issues that we've had. And that's our hope.
You're tuned into the first Catamount Conversation, our Facebook Live and YouTube event here from the Ramsey Center. Daniel Hooker and Gary Ayers from the Catamount Sports Network, again having the privilege of being joined by Jim Schaus, Commissioner of the Southern Conference and Director of Athletics here at Western Carolina, Alex Gary, and a lot of great conversations. Tonight's event presented by Stanberry Insurance. Great people from Stanberry Insurance, again online at stanberry-ins.com. 3 great locations, Silva, Waynesville, and Highlands. Again, Scott and Kevin Stanberry and all the great folks there with all the work that they help us with, and want to make sure we get this right in here. Again, Stanberry Insurance, more options to keep your bases covered for all of life's slam dunks, touchdowns, and home runs. Again, proud supporters of Western Carolina athletics. And Alex, as we continue that conversation, some of the challenges that we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, and what have been some of the biggest challenges that you have seen since coming on as athletic director? Again, the department was amidst a lot of the pandemic, as you were hired in March, and then of course starting in May. What have been some of the major challenges that you have seen as it relates to this pandemic?
Yeah, I think the first challenge I would mention is simply providing guidance to our staff when it's really hard to do that, about what next week brings, about when your student athletes can practice, about when, in terms of quarantining, coming back after Christmas, all these things are questions that they have, and it's not always easy to provide them answers because things are literally changing daily. And so I think that's a big one at first. I think that certainly the financial challenges, I'd call it more so financial uncertainty. Every single day, I've spoken with both of the basketball coaches today. Every single day you've got someone calling to cancel a game with you, or someone calling to offer you a game, but it's at maybe 25% of the normal game guarantee than you would get in a normal year. And so we have to be very careful with the resources over the next couple of years. Actually, it's not only going to be a challenge for us this year; it will leak into next year as well. But very careful while still providing our coaches and our student athletes with what they need in order to be successful, and that's a challenge that we're up for. We still have to fund tuition. We still have to fund housing and meals and other things like academic services and strength and conditioning for student athletes. We still need to provide budget support for our coaches to travel to games and recruit student athletes to our campus. We need to do all these things, but at the same time, understanding that week to week, our financial position could look very differently.
Wanted to touch on, you mentioned along the way there about the student athlete welfare and making sure that we're right and doing things that are protecting the student athletes. I know in college athletics, that's what we're here for, is for our student athletes. I think from the conference level all the way down, that can be echoed through. And one of the things that you mentioned early on, as we dealt with the pandemic that came out, was wanting to bring in an independent outside agency to kind of talk through COVID-19, answer some of the questions. You can hear the athletic trainers, you can hear the athletic director, you can hear your coach talk about it, but to hear an independent outside third party come in, and Western Carolina partnered with the U.S. Council on Athletes' Health to kind of hold a webinar to kind of explain things, not only to the student athletes, but also to their parents, guardians, and family members. Why was that important to you to make that move and to try to further educate the student athletes?
Yeah, I honestly felt like it was important for us to provide the best possible resources that we could to answer questions about what is going on with this thing. What are the true potential implications from a health perspective? What do we know? What don't we know? Because we have a great team doctor, a great head athletic trainer. Our athletic training staff is fantastic. At the same time, this thing is changing so rapidly. There are people that are spending significant time on this every single day. And so the partnership with the U.S. Council for Athletes' Health was really for the parents, quite honestly. The student athletes were obviously, we had a ton of them logged on to the presentation as well. But it was an opportunity to give the parents of the student athletes just a chance to ask questions. And they asked a lot of questions, a lot of great questions before, a lot of great questions after, and are still asking questions, and that's great. We welcome all of that. The two people that presented for us were Dr. Jim Borchers, who's the head team physician at Ohio State University and also led the Big Ten's return to play subcommittee, and also Dr. Chad Asplin, who's with the Mayo Clinic. Dr. Asplin actually did the presentation from the NBA bubble. He's in charge of testing down there at the NBA bubble. They test every single person on there every day. I think they said something like they do 2,000 tests a day. And that's what they started with, at least when all the teams were there. So we wanted to bring in really significant subject matter experts to talk to the parents, to talk to the student athletes. And I think we got a lot of their questions answered. But as things continue to change, we'll need to continue to provide that education.
Again, we talked about applauding what the conference did with some of the deliberateness of making some of these tough decisions. Everybody's looking for the answers. Everybody's looking for that easy question and answer right now. And quite honestly, there are no easy answers. And I think having that third independent party come in and try to explain some things, you can hear it from party A and party B, but party C sometimes will be the big difference maker right there, and that question and answer.
Yeah, Daniel, I think you're right. And like Alex was saying, I think this is kind of a learn as we go process, because we're learning so much almost every day with this virus situation, and the coaches are, I think, exchanging information as they can to find out what is the best way to go and what is the best thing to do, and as they look ahead to the games still yet to be played.
I know Commissioner Schaus talked about cost containment efforts, and we'll ask Alex one kind of follow-up question along the lines of budgeting, and we'll talk somewhat about the We Are One fund that was set up through the Catamount Club. Again, the donations, the lifeblood of Western Carolina athletics is its fundraising. The student body, the student athletes, all of those things add in to make what is Western Carolina athletics. But Alex, talk about the We Are One fund, and again, as we close tonight, we'll roll that video that was very well done, but we want to get with you and talk, get your thoughts on the We Are One fund, and what does that mean to Western Carolina athletics here in the 2020-2021 school year?
Absolutely, yeah, the We Are One fund is, and I give a lot of credit to Chad Garrity and Ryan Jones on our staff, who have done a fantastic job of putting everything together, but it's a really exciting initiative, as you mentioned, allows the members of Catamount Nation to help us through a very uncertain financial year, is I guess the best way that I can put it. Not only are we not going to be able to rely on traditional revenue sources, as Commissioner mentioned earlier, like ticket sales and potentially game guarantees that are not certain until the games are played, concessions, things of that nature. There are specific COVID-related expenses that we have to invest in as well. And I guess an example of that would be, I talked to Coach Spear about this just yesterday. We're talking about traveling to these 3 away games here coming up in the next month or so, and then 4 away games as we get into the conference season. Normally we may take 3 buses. This year it makes sense for us to take 4. Spread those kids out a little bit. I know buses cost $2,500 per bus, and over 7 games, that's you're looking at $17,000. That's significant. It's no small cost, but at the same time, it's the right thing to do. So so pleased and so happy with what Catamount Nation, how they've stepped up so far in a big way to support the initiative. And, we certainly look forward to continued support over the course of the rest of the academic year.
No doubt, and that comes in, it's so important. Commissioner Schaus, I got to tell you, I've been looking forward to this question for several minutes now. I was talking to Coach Kylie Hill here on campus at Western Carolina University before we started this broadcast, and he was down there working out with his team. And if you talk to Coach Kylie Hill for 5 minutes, you're ready to go out and throw the basketball up and get the season started. But looking ahead to wintertime and basketball season, and so many fans love our basketball tournament. What can you tell us about the SoCon basketball season and that tournament as it looks ahead at this time?
Well, we're planning on having a regular season, an 18-game men's basketball season, 14-game women's basketball season like normal. The non-conference games are going to be different. There's going to be probably some incomplete areas where some of those games might be canceled, but we've got those things on a track right now. We're looking at the possibility of, do we want to try to create a buffer game or a slot somewhere to get some rescheduling or some rest maybe before the tournament. So we're kind of dotting a few I's there. But, we have an outstanding nationally recognized basketball conference on the men's side especially. And so we're looking forward to that. We are also smart enough to understand that when football has lost 20% of their games, basketball is going to be very susceptible to cancellations due to COVID, all the contact tracing and all the quarantining. And we know that. And those are some things that we're trying to be nimble and being ready for that. If you have 1 positive case, 2 positive case, you're probably going to have to contact trace and quarantine perhaps your whole team. During a regular season with 2 games a week, you might miss 4 games in the season for 1 outbreak. So it's going to be a different year. I think it might be a little messy at times. I think will we have 18 games completed by every men's team this year? Probably not. I hope we do. But we have to, understand that it's going to be different. Our teams have not really competed as a whole yet at all for the whole year. So we've had some individual contests, but us as in any sport, we have not gone full bore in this. And so that's going to be a little bit more challenging, but the testing is getting a lot better. I think how we handle it, the schools all have outstanding protocols in place. So at the same time, I want to be optimistic and feel like we will get through some of those bumps in the road and want to complete. It's imperative to complete our conference schedule. And then, of course, we have the best postseason basketball tournament in the country. It's the oldest. We think it's the best. Asheville is an outstanding host. So we are having plans to be hopeful to have that tournament as we normally do. If we would have had that tournament in December, the maximum number of fans would have been 100, according to the state of North Carolina. So what that's going to look like in March, we don't know. We're certainly planning on that. And frankly, we probably will plan some contingency plans if we would be unable to host that event properly. So we're going to look at different concept. We're going to say positive about the regular season, positive about our postseason. We have to find a way to have a legitimate champion and an at-large opportunity as well, hopefully along with our AQ. So, it's a very, very important basketball season. It's going to be different than normal, but we're trying to be optimistic, and we want to have that tournament back in Asheville for sure.
Oh, no question. Jim, I know this is kind of outside the scope of that, but I know they're talking about, of course, the Maui Classic coming into Asheville. As far as fan attendance at that tournament, or our Southern Conference tournament, will that be regulated by the governor of North Carolina as to how many fans can actually attend either the Maui tournament and or our Southern Conference basketball tournaments in Asheville?
Yeah, that's definitely going to be something that's going to be dictated by both the local community, by the city of Asheville, the local county health officials, just like they were involved in our basketball tournament, basically approving the guidelines and qualifications we had for the basketball tournament, as well as the state of North Carolina. So yes, absolutely, that they will dictate, that type of quarantining opportunities or staying away from those things if we have to. And so we'll be as optimistic as possible. We obviously like to have all of our fans in there, but we'll have to follow those guidelines and work with the city of Asheville and our sports commission to determine exactly what that's going to look like.
I know Gary mentioned some releases coming out from the conference earlier
Yes.
this week, and one of those that does center around basketball. And because it is purple clad, we'll go with it. And it obviously involves our good friends down the road in Greenville, South Carolina at Furman, and Southern Conference is a part of that with Furman and Bon Secours Wellness Arena. Going to be able to host one of those regionals coming up, 2023, I believe, as a
Yes.
part of the NCAA tournament. Got to be exciting for the conference to have a conference member, again, serve as a host for what's going to be a regional event for the NCAA.
Yeah, we are excited about that. The women's the women's event that we lost this past year, we're able to get that back in 2023, and then the men's in 2026. So that's outstanding. We work as a partner, so we are co-sponsors of that event. The Southern Conference sponsors that along with Furman University, working with Bon Secours, the city of Greenville, and all the individuals and groups. So it's a great team effort. And I'm really excited about it for our conference and also just for the city of Greenville to have those kind of events and that people really want to come back to our region. So that was a big victory for us today.
Is really been a great partner for the Southern Conference when it relates to the baseball championship and the baseball tournament there at the West End and Floor Field. And that's been a great and a very well-attended event over the early part of that partnership. Again, great run with the tournament over the years, being in Asheville, being in Charleston, and of course continuing that in Greenville, South Carolina. Here we are. We're talking with Western Carolina Director of Athletics Alex Gary and the Commissioner of the Southern Conference and Mr. Jim Schaus, Daniel Hooker, Gary Ayers from the Catamount Sports Network. We're glad to have you tuned in to our Facebook Live and YouTube event presented by Stanberry Insurance. Don't forget Stanberry Insurance, 3 great locations. They've also got online at stanberryins.com. Again, all the great folks there, Scott Stanberry, Kevin Stanberry, all the great staff, Gorham Bradley, Miffy Henley, some Catamount ties with Stephanie Conley as well, all there with our good friends. And don't forget Chase and Ashley Crest, 2 former golf student athletes. So a very big Western Carolina tie when it talks about Stanberry Insurance. And of course, want to make sure we get this in there. More options to keep all your bases covered through all life slam dunks, touchdowns, and home runs. Again, very sports related there when it talks about the catch line for Stanberry Insurance. And again, Alex Gary with the assist, dropping it in there as well, helping out, make sure we didn't forget Ashley and Chase and the job that they do with our good friends from Stanberry Insurance. And as we look forward, I know this will be something that Jim Schaus will really look forward to talking about as we enter into the 2020 and maybe more importantly, the 2021. If you get a look at the Southern Conference logo, you notice the number 1921. And of course, we're entering into the 100th anniversary of the Southern Conference. When we've gone to our 2-shot at times, you got that 100 logo dropped in there, trying to make sure we do our part. Western Carolina has been a part of the conference since 1976, but this conference has been around for a long, long time. And love when we go to play the SEC and go to play the ACC, we can say, yeah, we're Western Carolina and we're from the Southern Conference. You came from us. You guys started with us. So let's talk about that 100 celebration. I know that's a big milestone for a conference. You talked about the oldest basketball tournament in NCAA history with Western Carolina, with Southern Conference. But let's talk about that 100th anniversary celebration as we look at the 100 years of the conference, Commissioner.
Well, thanks. We are the second. There's only 2 other conferences in the country that are older than us under the same name, and that's pretty special. You're right. We have some roots from some different schools that have been a part of our conference, but I'm so proud of the 10 institutions we have now. So we'll be celebrating in this our history, great teams, great moments, our current membership, and also our future. And we'll be kicking that off in November. Our campaign, 1921 to 2021, will really be focusing on January to December. And we've got a great plan of things that we're going to be doing, created a new logo. There'll be banners at events, videos, promotions. We'll be, really looking at engaging the institutions into things that go on at events as well as our campuses. So you'll see videos, you'll see, a variety of guests, things that we'll be doing to really talk about our history. And so we're really excited about it. Really can't wait to get started with it.
And contrary to popular belief, Gary Ayers was not a part of that conference in 1921 that created. Steve White might have been, though.
Yeah, he was there. He helped.
Steve White might have been
the initial form. Yeah.
But
that was cruel, man. That was cruel.
He's just saying I'm old, basically, in a nice way.
And I'm catching you. That's the good thing. Age is a blessing, is what I hear. But
Yes.
as we look to the spring, want to kind of follow up with both Commissioner Schaus and with Alex here. We'll go to the commissioner first here. What do you envision a spring looking like? And you cannot use the word busy, because I think that's what we're all thinking right now with basketball wrapping up through February and March, and then volleyball and soccer, all the fall sports with football thrown in, and of course our traditional sports, the golf, the tennis, here at Western Carolina, and we also got baseball coming in, softball coming in there as well. So what are you looking to for that spring semester, Commissioner, from a conference level?
How about the phrase action-packed?
There you go.
Yes.
That's it. That is
True
perfect.
sports announcer.
There.
That is much better.
I really credit our staff of Jeff Cabe, Jason Yeaman with our scheduling. And so we've actually looked at the footprint of moving fall over spring, knowing that winter sports kind of click into it a little bit. And honestly, it's not as bad as we thought it was going to look. There's going to be examples where there's going to be multiple events on the same day that might even involve the same facility. Football it really draws the staff a lot. So the local staff has to spend a ton of time on a home football game. But it is going to be busy. But at the same time, I think it's going to be exciting. And also that we really are able to have these seasons. I think that's one thing that motivates me. Our championships are going to be more compact, so we're putting those on top as well. But no, it's going to be something that's going to have to involve some management and organization at the school end and at the conference end. And unfortunately, we probably will lose a few events from time to time. And I hope that doesn't, the act against the virus and our testing gets better, and we don't have that happen as much as we move in later into the spring. But again, I think it should be a lot of fun. I know that we're all looking forward to it.
Having worked with Jeff Cabe, and I know he says everybody likes to complain about scheduling until you have to actually do it. So I understand what he's going through with that between him and Jason and everybody involved at the conference level, and of course on schools as well. And Alex, kind of same question. What do you envision without using the word busy, and maybe now without using action pack, even though I think that was a great way to describe it. What are you looking to the spring semester from a Catamount athletics perspective?
I think I'm going to steal the word that the commissioner just used, and fun. It looks like fun, honestly, to me. I mean, to be able to take in a football game and then head over to baseball and before going to a volleyball game at the Ramsey Center, it sounds like a great day. Now, that's to me. Don't ask Rory Jimerson, our director of facilities and operations, what that looks like. But we'll at the same time, there's going to be a lot of stress on the staff. I mean. And I completely get that. Everyone will need to play a big role to make sure that it's a great experience for our student athletes and our fans. I told the chancellor this the other day when we were talking about some of this. I said, Chancellor Brown, you may see me tearing tickets over at baseball or driving coolers from the Ramsey Center to softball. So it'll truly be an all hands on deck effort, but one that we will be well prepared for.
Well, I'm pretty sure Gary Ayers had it beforehand, Alex, that you're now on deck for radio, television, and public address with The Voice, I think is what Gary was saying earlier.
That's right.
Put me in, Coach. Let's go.
And you do a great job, I'm sure. Alex, talk about this a little bit. Everybody from coaches to ADs to even politicians during this very, very busy time of the year. The word is success that we all want to see, no matter what our level. How do you define success of Catabolic athletics as our athletics director?
That's a great question. I think that, I guess I'll go back to something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and just preparing our student athletes for life after colorway, equipping them with the skills they'll need to set a positive tone for the next 40 years of their lives. And it's very cliche, trust me, I get it. Everybody talks about that. We want to prepare people for life after athletics, but it's absolutely something that I am extremely, I don't want to say obsessively, but I'm passionate about this. You know, I say it again, I when I was a freshman here, I said this during the press conference, I was a little bit of a knucklehead. By the time I left, I was a lot more mature. I had an idea of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so that's what success looks like to me, first and foremost. You know, I think we have an outstanding culture here on our campus, and I can say that with full confidence. I don't think anyone here in Coley would disagree with that. I spoke earlier again about competing consistently in the top three of every single sport that we sponsor. So I think if we're able to do that and put ourselves in a position for postseason play consistently, we'll have a successful program.
Oh, no doubt. And as our leader, we wish you all the best. And I know a lot of people are ready to rally behind you and help you in that effort as well.
Looking forward to it. We've got a lot of work to do, but I can guarantee you, Gary, we're going to get there.
Yes,
we have no other choice.
As we start to wind down here with our Facebook Live event, again presented by our good friends from Stanberry Insurance. Again, we'll be back October 26th to talk Catamount football on the same platforms with head coach Mark Spear, offensive coordinator John Holt, defensive coordinator Andy McCullum, and then we get into November, early in a busy part of November, as we start to gear up for that first football game for Western Carolina, non-conference on the road at Liberty on November 14th. We'll be back in this same venue on November 9th as we talk Western Carolina men's and women's basketball with head coach Mark Prosser and Kylie Hill. But again, appreciate everybody sticking around with us during this. And as we wind down, do want to reach out and say, all right, closing thoughts and kind of wrapping things up from both of our esteemed guests. And we'll start with the commissioner, just kind of some closing thoughts again as we wrap up this conversation. A lot of questions have been answered related to the COVID-19 pandemic, related to what we're looking at with all the changes and the postponement, not the cancellation, but the postponement of some of those fall sports. But Commissioner, kind of a closing thoughts from you there in South Carolina.
Well, thank you. I think something I really want to try to share with you and your audience today is that you have outstanding leadership at your institution right now. And I've been so impressed with Alex Gary. He is a star in this business. And, you know, from a very early stage, Alex kind of new to the position, not new to Western, of course, but he has really developed into a leader in that athletic director room. You can just listen to his comments today. It's so impressive. What a tremendous leader. I think those of you who are fans of the Catamounts can feel very assured that you've got one of your own in that very important position, but you got somebody who knows what they're doing, has great vision and excitement. And I'll also add to that, I've been so impressed with Chancellor Brown. Kelly Brown is just somebody who has so much passion. I love seeing her activism and involvement with the students when they're, out trying to share friendly protests and being engaged and involved and caring at every turn. So I know that I get a chance from a distance to see how institutions operate, and I can tell you in athletics and at your university, you have two outstanding leaders, and you can be very blessed and thankful for what they're going to do to help you lead in the future.
And I think those sentiments are echoed by just about anybody who visits campus or has the fortunate ability to visit campus, either physically or virtually these days. We're talking about Chancellor Brown and, of course, Alex Gary. And I believe at the conference office level as well. Again, I thought John Imarino did an outstanding job of building the conference. I think Jim Schaus, I think you, sir, have done an outstanding job coming in and continuing that tradition within the Southern Conference. We appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. And, of course, Alex, we'll leave it up to you for any final thoughts for you as we again, get geared up as we're starting to get things going. Looking forward to this 2020-2021 campaign. Your final thoughts for the evening.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much, Commissioner, for saying that. I coming into this job at this stage in my career as a first-time athletic director, there's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot of questions that I ask, and Jim and I have had a number of personal conversations months and months ago, and and still do, with someone that's been a Division I athletic director for 20 years, being able to help me and guide me and in terms of some of the things that go on. I'm really appreciative of that. I want Catamount Nation to know that this is a small blip in time. We are going to be great. We are going to push forward. We're going to do some things that are going to make you proud. And I feel so blessed and so fortunate that I'm able to be back at my alma mater. I went to school here. It's my alma mater. Whenever the thing that I hear most from athletic directors in our conference is, you've got the best game day environment. That's what they always tell me. You guys really know how to do it right in Cullowhee. And we want to give all of you something to be even more proud of. And our student athletes are working their tails off. We've got some great coaches. We've got some great people. And I'm so excited about our future. And, from a fundraising perspective, Catamount Nation has been amazing. Other institutions in our region have reached out to us to figure out what we're doing. And I'm so happy to be here. We've got so much potential. We're already doing some great things. And I look forward to a fantastic year and partnering with everyone to make Catamount Nation, continue to make Catamount Athletics the best it can possibly be.
Well, once again, we thank both Commissioner Schaus and Alex Gary, our athletics director, for their time here this evening. Thank Gary Ayers, my co-host right here. And Gary, want to kind of get some final thoughts from you as we wrap up this portion of the program.
Oh, it's always good to talk with these gentlemen. And I'm going to throw you both a curve here. Pardon the pun, but I know you're both baseball fans. I've got to get a prediction here. Who's going to be playing in the World Series here in just a few days, guys? And I know there may be a little twist here. Commissioner, I'll give you the first shot.
Well, I'm a Dodger fan. I grew up
I
in
knew that.
the LA area until I was about 10. So I know Kershaw's out for a few games, but I'm confident the Dodgers will come back, and it'll be the Dodgers and the Rays, and the Dodgers will prevail.
All right, Alex, of course, a former Catamount baseball player yourself. You may have a different train of thought there.
And he can hit the curveball, so he's going to get this.
Only the hanging curveball. Anything below the knees, I got no chance. Never did. But I just looked at my phone, and it looks like it's 15-1 Dodgers in the third inning. I'm not sure how that happened exactly.
Wow.
But I'm gonna go a little bit of a different direction. I do think the Braves are going to continue what they've done in the first two games. Obviously, game 3 they can kind of take off, save some of their arms, and the Rays are just playing some phenomenal baseball. So
yes,
it's hard to go against those guys. And I just, from a culture perspective, being able to do what they've done with the third lowest budget in the entire major leagues, I think that speaks volumes to the culture they've been able to create. So I'm going to go Rays and Braves.
Thank you, guys.
So everybody agrees the Rays are going to be the ones, and of course they've got the head start there, and they're making their waves. They're heading that direction pretty doggone quickly. And could Tampa get a couple of championships this year? One in the NHL, one in MLB. That could be a title town moving down south here during the pandemic.
But the Buccaneers too.
Hey, the Buccaneers, they've got Tom Brady. So, hey, we'll see. But again, gentlemen, we greatly appreciate your time this evening, and appreciate everyone that tuned in tonight as well. A lot of questions we got in advance from some fans and some people wanting to know some of the answers to some of these burning questions. And again, everybody wants the answer to the tough question, but right now there are no easy answers. And again, we appreciate both the commissioner and our athletic director, Alex Gary, joining us here tonight. And also special thanks to our good friends at Stanberry Insurance for their proud sponsorship of Catamount Athletics. That includes our Facebook Live event right here this evening. As we wrap up from the Ramsey Center, for Gary Ayers, I'm Daniel Hooker saying so long. And we talked about the We Are One Fund. If you missed this video, we're going to roll it here at the end. We invite you to stick around and watch and get to hear the sultry sounds of our athletic director, Alex Gary, talk about the We Are One Fund. Catamount Nation, from Cullowhee, we say good night. Thanks for tuning in.
Each year, we look forward to the beginning of the academic year. The anticipation grows as our student athletes return to competition.
A coach's voice speaks of inspiration to a new season of student athletes as the sound of our marching band echoes through our campus.
The locker rooms and hallways are filled with the energy that signals the students are back in Cullowhee. For many, it's just the beginning, and for some, it's the bittersweet final fall.
But for all, it's a unique experience that only comes around once in a lifetime.
COVID-19 has had a profound impact on all of our athletic teams. Catamount sports were canceled this past spring, and fall sports were postponed.
This has been devastating to me, my fellow student athletes, and our coaches. But like so many others, we have learned to cope, adjust, and look to the future with the hope we can soon play the sport that we love.
Your generosity from this past year helped ensure that we can continue to compete in the classroom and provides the foundation for what we need to get back to the competition.
I can't wait until the first match. The spirit of competition and the exhilarating moment of winning. It powers me in every other area of my life, from academics to my family. I can't describe the incredible feeling of running onto the field among the fall leaves of our mountains, the cheers of thousands around.
That moment of pure joy and pride as your teammates celebrate with you on the field, the sidelines, and the locker room. These memories last a lifetime. I know my experience here today will set a foundation for my success tomorrow.
It will take all of us coming together as one in order to get through what will be a challenging year.
All of us means staff, faculty, coaches, donors, student-athlete alumni, friends, and current student-athletes. It also means those who have traditionally supported athletics only from a distance.
We need you now. In order for us to get back into the competition in a responsible way, it will require an investment.
It will require patience.
Will require us to step up for our student athletes. You've done it time and time before, and we know Catamount Nation is again up to the challenge.
In response to the pandemic, we have created the We Are One Fund.
Facing $1 million revenue challenge, coupled with increased costs associated with COVID-19, we need your support in a unique way in order to keep our commitments to our deserving student athletes.
Our resolve has been tested in ways we never expected, and we need you.
We cannot compromise our commitment to our student athletes. We must continue to instill the spirit of perseverance and the strength of character that makes us Catamount strong. Join us in supporting our student athletes through the We Are One Fund.
We are one.
We are Catamounts.
Go Cats!
Go Cats!
Go Cats!